Hello, I am the Irish guy, and Wolverhampton Wanderers are an absolute joke. Can you remember a Premier League team gearing up for a season and having as terrible a preparation as Wolves? They're like Deji in fight camp, just shoveling pizza down his face. This is honestly like trying to host a dinner party for the Hollywood elites. And just 3 hours before they arrive, you realize all the food in the fridge is out of date. Your chef quits in a huff, and so you instead just have to serve up homemade Rice Krispie buns and milk to DiCaprio. Wolves actually had Julen Lopetegui in their grasp, an actual top quality manager. I mean, bit of a drama queen. He always seems to leave every job in a very dramatic way. He was sacked by Porto just a few weeks after leading them to the worst ever defeat in European competition. 6-1 against Bayern Munich. He also left the Spain job a week before the 2018 World Cup after snakily agreeing to join Real Madrid behind their back. And then he was sacked by Madrid after a 5-1 loss in El Clasico. And yeah, was sacked by Sevilla after a hideous 4-1 defeat against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. And now he is walking out on Wolves days before the season starts. But who can blame him? I don't blame him, in much the same way I don't blame my dad for going out for milk 17 years ago. I mean, look who he had as a son. Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolverhampton Wanderers. The alliteration of the Premier League. Wolverhampton Wanderers. Right now, I'm obsessing over WW so much, I feel like Hank Schrader trying to do a poo, but they are an absolute disgrace. Lads, this isn't just a Wolves hit piece. I actually have quite a soft spot for Wolves. They were the first Premier League team I ever saw live in the flesh. They were managed by Davy Jones at the time. No, not that monster of Pirates of the Caribbean. Lads, to all you junior detectives out there, tell me in the comments, deciphering the clues you know about me, tell me what Premier League match that was. Here's a clue. A world superstar missed a penalty. If you're actually able to guess the correct answer in the comments, I'm gonna give you a 30-second shout out next week. Anyway, whatever about Wolves fans, I feel like I have been tricked. This was supposed to be the huge project, combining their Chinese billions with the help of super agent Jorge Mendes. Getting them into the Europa League was just supposed to be the start. They finished 7th twice in a row for a newly promoted club that was fantastic. But then they followed it up with 13th, 10th, and 13th. And then this summer, it's beyond ridiculous. Out goes Ruben Neves, Nathan Collins, Connor Cody, Raul Jimenez, Adama Traore, and Diego Costa. In comes Matt Doherty and Tom King. Having Jorge Mendes involved almost seems a bit pointless. Yes, he's got an impressive phone book filled with elite superstars. Price of Wolves are just one text message away from Cristiano Ronaldo. But does it really matter when none of these stars want to come? Yeah, I mean, on FaceTime, Ronaldo might blow the Wolves lunch lady a kiss on her birthday, but what else? It's a bit like if I, for some strange reason, was friends with a bunch of random celebrities on Facebook. Yeah, I mean, do you think any of them still want to come over to my house? You really think Rihanna and Bieber are gonna pop over to my barbecue? The most famous person I'd be able to get to knock on my door would be Thug Dad, and that's just if I send him his son's finger in the post. What? Why do you think he hasn't uploaded in a month? Christ, that's so dark. I don't even know if that's true. But lads, I foolishly bought into this Wolves project. I believed in Harvey Dent. This is a club who were able to buy Ruben Neves whilst rotting in the championship. Ruben Neves, Porto's youngest ever captain and Portugal international at 18. Somehow persuading him to join the pudding squad in the dregs of the Midlands, where so little actually goes on in Wolverhampton. I mean, there's probably a statue of Liam Payne outside the local Burger King, but if Mendes truly had the best interests of Wolves, they would have signed Darwin Núñez from Benfica in 2021 after a 14-goal debut season, before he'd exploded with a nearly 40-goal year that got him a move to Liverpool. Isn't that the point of Mendes? To target these Latin superstars before they become popular? They should have been the ones signing Enzo Fernandez from River Plate for just £15 million, before he wound up costing more than Hong Kong. Why couldn't this club have a midfield three of Gibbs White, Renato Sanchez, and Lucas Paqueta? I mean, why not? Those three have joined Nottingham Forest, Swansea, and West Ham in their lives. So don't you tell me they have lupophobia? That's an extreme fear of wolves. That's the nerdiest joke I've ever said. This Wolverhampton Wanderers project is into its 8th year. You'd have thought they would be at the very least playing Europa League football every season, knocking on the door of the top 4. What Brighton are doing, and this summer using their contacts to try and buy the likes of Emerick Laporte, Goncalo Ramos, or Marco Asensio. I mean, why not? You have Mendes in charge. This should make life easier for you. Look at Wrexham. I mean, the only reason James McClean has joined that club is probably because his wife fancies Ryan Gosling. I know, he just didn't tell her which Ryan it was. Just pretend the Wrexham owner was in Barbie. I'm gonna say this. And you might think I've got the brains of a fat Teletubby, but Wolves right now should be in such a healthy position on and off the pitch that they could and should be in a position to sign João Cancelo from Man City on loan. Wasn't this Wolves project supposed to be ambitious? I mean, we've heard Wolves been half-heartedly linked with Mendes touch superstars like in 2021 when they were apparently offered Rafael Leao from AC Milan. 3 years ago, Troy Deeney was tipping Wolves to buy Ronaldo. I remember they were trying to launch an audacious bid for Sami Khedira. I'm guessing those Wolves fans were so excited, they were probably weeing on the floor. But the whole thing is a con. This reminds me when Blackburn Rovers were taken over and tried to buy Ronaldinho and David Beckham. Yeah. Tried. It was such a half-hearted, insincere effort and just a publicity stunt for the fans. I bet that attempt went about as far as poking Ronaldinho's agent on Facebook. This actually reminds me of Man City's takeover before Sheikh Mansour. When, yeah, that regime also offered Ronaldinho £200,000 a week to join before everybody realized their owner had no money and was on the run from the police. Now, I'm not calling the Wolves owners frauds who belong in a Batman film, but this is still a joke. Even in recent months, these unbelievable transfer rumors have been out there. Wolves have apparently been trying to pull a Felix, or to pull a Ceballos, to pull a Fati, not Ansu. Just Matt Doherty eating a bucket of chicken wings. Mendes has had some absolute stinkers. 18 million for Patrick Catrone, 35 million for Fabio Silva, 30 million for Nelson Semedo, 10 million for Kiana Hoover, 30 million for Goncalo Guedes, 18 million for João Gomez, 18 million for Sasa Kalacic, 10 million for Mario Lemina, 40 million for Mateus Cunha. Even the existences of Trincao, Chiquinho, Willian Jose, Jesus Vallejo, Bruno Jordao, Renat Dadashov, and Rafa Mir have all been huge disappointments. I almost don't blame the Chinese owners for not trusting his influence anymore, because time and time again on his recommendation, they have forked out huge chunks of money for footballers who adapt to Wolverhampton as if they were an Eskimo at the beach. Yeah, I mean, he'd probably just be having a seizure in the sand. I mean, is the whole Mendes thing just a form of sabotage? Was he someone who, when he was a child, was just traumatized by the Portuguese edition of Red Riding Hood? Does he just have a weird vendetta against Wolves? I mean, why get into bed with Mendes in the first place? Was it just to stroke your ego that little old Wolves are now getting to work with some bloke who gets Ronaldo as Manscaped ads? Was it just so you could invite Luis Figo to dinner parties? And now Gary O'Neill. Gary O'Neill, actual Gary O'Neill. Lads, I respect Martin a lot, but the Premier League are like the GAA. They've both moved on from O'Neill's. Actually, I'm not even sure if that's true. Are O'Neill's still the sponsor? Probably, but listen. O'Neill. Those two syllables don't belong on Match of the Day. They're more suited to an episode of The In-Betweeners. But lads, what makes me tickle is this. 2 years ago, Crystal Palace, Everton, and Wolves were stuck in not a love triangle, but a love square. Sounds very painful. It was a bit like Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and KSI squabbling over who gets their hands on Tommy Fury. Except in 2021, it was Nuno Santo. You know, the guy who looked like a homeless Santa Claus. And weirdly, just like Tommy Fury, he also chased the bag in Saudi. But lads, he had left Wolves, and both Everton and Crystal Palace were interviewing him. He didn't get either job. All three clubs were trying to hire exclusive, exciting, big names. Right, so how on earth were Everton ever going to try and replace Carlo Ancelotti? But Crystal Palace wanted Lucien Favre, Eddie Howe, Frank Lampard. Exciting, big names. Wow. One of them is now coaching in the Champions League, and the other one was a runner-up at the Ballon d'Or, and Everton were linked with Antonio Conte and Erik ten Hag. Wolves initially replaced Nuno with Bruno, but then eventually got their hands on Lopetegui, a former Real Madrid boss. All three of those clubs wanted to move on to luxurious big names in football, because Everton also replaced an ex-Real Madrid manager with another ex-Real Madrid manager. But now, Wolves, Everton, and Crystal Palace are now managed by Gary O'Neill, Sean Dyche, and Roy Hodgson. All three men who left their previous jobs sitting 15th in the league, 18th in the league, and 19th in the league. Gary, Sean, and Roy. They just sound like three ordinary blokes who work on a construction site drinking beer and wolf whistling at grandmas in the street. I don't want to be cruel, but I'm sorry, you should never go from a former Real Madrid manager to someone called Gary. I mean, hands up. Let me know in the comments if Gary is your name, because I want to know how many wet weasels I'm dealing with. I'm sorry, that was me, but face it. You can't expect to command any sort of authority in a public dressing room when you have a vanilla name that sounds like it belongs to a mild-mannered gardener whose wife has affairs when he's out weeding daffodils for his grandmother Marge. Lads, this story reminds me of 3 other public managers. It's quite ironic that Gary is the next coach, because it was Martin O'Neill who did this before, quitting Aston Villa on the eve of the season because they sold James Milner behind his back. I mean, that's weird. Kevin Keegan did the same thing in 2008. Again, when Newcastle sold James Milner behind his back. And this week, there were stories about Jurgen Klopp quitting Liverpool. Yeah, and guess who moved to Brighton a month ago? Managers seem to take losing Milner very badly. I mean, calm down, lads. It's not like the club chairman just knocked down your mummy with his van. But this reminds me of when Tony Pulis quit Crystal Palace 2 days before the start of the season because of their inactivity in the transfer market. The guy wanted to buy the likes of Stephen Cocker, Michu, and Gylfi Sigurdsson, and the chairman said no. Maybe Steve Parish had a point, because one of them has admitted to gambling away £250,000 in one night. The other was a one-season wonder, and the other one, let's just say I wouldn't have been shocked to see him sitting in the front row at the Little Mermaid. What? Disney's popular in Iceland. Check the stats. Lads, in this world of mouth-watering payoffs, when you get sacked as a Premier League boss, you know how much of a mess you have to be in to actually force your manager to quit, to voluntarily leave. The club said this, that they had accepted their differences of opinion on certain issues and agreed that an amicable end to his contract was the best solution. What? Lopetegui wanted to sign players, and they didn't. They said they wanted time to find a successor, that they've actually been on the lookout for a new manager for weeks. So you're telling me this man, a guy who knows he's on his way out, oversaw an entire pre-season campaign when everybody knew that he'd be spending September sitting on a beach in Kavos, shoving burgers in his mouth and creeping out the uni students. Wolves had an entire summer to find a successor, and the best they could rummage up is O'Neill, going from a former Real Madrid manager to a former Bournemouth coach. To be fair, that alone isn't actually as pathetic as it sounds, because Newcastle I've sort of done that too. The whole saga is very similar to Rafa Benitez, who was sick of Mike Ashley spending more on sausage sandwiches and apple pies than he would on actual quality footballers. He stormed out of Newcastle in 2019, prompting many a Geordie to cry in the street, before, yes, initially replacing him with Steve Bruce, which was so depressing. That was a bit like a child being torn away from the loving arms of his mum and being forced to go and live with a cannibal clown. Benitez was a Champions League winner teeming with dignity and class. But, I mean, right now, I just know that Bruce's pajamas are probably covered in jam donut stains. He's someone who probably just eats an entire birthday cake sitting on the toilet. But in the long run, Newcastle have gone from an ex-Real Madrid boss, similar to Lopetegui, who also only lasted 6 months at the Bernabeu, to a former Bournemouth manager. And he's got them into the Champions League for the first time in 21 years, so I don't have an unfair hatred of Bournemouth managers. I don't think anybody who graduates from that club belongs nowhere near the top 6 and should instead stay in their lane and just live beside the beach offering ice cream to kids. No, but O'Neill is still a pathetic choice. He's been a manager for 1 year, where he lost 20 of his 37 games as Bournemouth boss. This is such a lazy choice. Wolves don't want to be ambitious, so instead of spending money, they just saw O'Neill somehow keep Bournemouth up after limited spending, and so want him to repeat the trick. But I mean, people were crying about the Cherries sacking him and upgrading in the summer. But let's see what people say when Bournemouth finish mid-table and Wolves go down. This is going to be the season where O'Neill's short managerial career is crushed into wet cauliflower and Wolves are getting relegated. Despite having Mendes and his extensive contacts in his phone book, you are getting relegated. What a pathetic end to this mess. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Let me know, are Wolves going down? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give a like to subscribe. As always, I'll talk shit a while. Alright, so I'm here with my shepherd's pie. This is unfair. I backed Bournemouth to stay up last season. I actually backed them to stay up. He shouted at me. He knows what I'm going to do next. Alright, shepherd's pie. Let's find a stranger's car. It's a pretty deserted car park. Could go for those. The closest one. Come on, there's a car. There's a car. Quickly before they come. Quickly. They're going to turn up any minute. This is really weird and I think probably illegal, but... Is there anyone here?
Not yet.
Oh no. It's so hot it burns my mouth.
Hurry up, there's someone coming. Hurry up, hurry up.
Are they here?